Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sixth episode in our Critical Creativity and Action webinar series. We're so excited to be here today. My name is Jackie Gardy, and I'll be your host. I work in the Office of English Language Programs as a content development editor and virtual exchange specialist. We also have Chris, Kara, and Brooke behind the scenes helping make this series a success. This series highlights the exciting new resource called Critical Creativity and Action. Our presenter, Dan Ryder, and I created this resource with support from many teachers around the world. Critical Creativity and Action is a card deck and manual containing literacy strategies designed to help English as a foreign language teachers add opportunities for creative and critical thinking in their classrooms. You can find this resource at americanenglish.state.gov/resources/critical-creativity-action. Please download the print and play version along with the teacher's manual. And if you're watching this from outside the United States, you can contact your regional English language officer for a physical copy. At the end of this webinar, there will be a link for you to follow to find your relo. Throughout these 6 webinars, we'll learn how to incorporate these free materials into our classrooms to engage our students' creative minds. Each session focuses on a different aspect of the Critical Creativity and Action resources, so we encourage you to attend as many of these sessions as possible. You can view the recordings on our American English YouTube channel. So what can you expect when you join us for these special webinars? Each webinar will be 60 minutes long. We will focus on one or a few of the activities available in the newest resource for teachers on americanenglish.state.gov called Critical Creativity and Action. We will explore the materials and activities from this resource, and we will share ways to use this resource in the classroom. And we'll finish each episode with thoughts and ideas for adapting materials from Critical Creativity and Action. Please use the comments to share your questions and ideas as we move along today. We want to hear from you. The guiding question for this webinar series is, how might we use creativity to help our learners become critical thinkers? Each episode will help us answer that question in a different way. In today's episode, Setting Context and Teaching Concepts, we will review the importance of thematic units in creating connections for learners between skill sets. We'll demonstrate methods described in the Critical Creativity and Action Teacher's Manual for creating thematic units of study. And we'll review the Critical Creativity and Action webinar series and answer frequently asked questions. So let's begin with this prompt to engage our creativity and get us started today. What are some of your favorite themes to explore in literature, film, music, or art in your leisure time? Leisure time means like your free time. So what are your favorite themes to explore in literature, film, music, or art? Please type your answers in the comments while I introduce our guest speaker. We are so pleased to have Dan Ryder presenting this series with us. Dan is the Director of Design and Innovation at the Community Regional Charter School in Skowhegan, Maine, and teaches science, technology, engineering, arts, math, and English, and design classes in grades 7 to 12. He has 25 years of classroom teaching experience and works as a consultant for the Office of English Language Programs. He is the writer of Panels and Perspectives, Creating Comics in the EFL Classroom, the co-creator of Critical Creativity and Action Card Deck, and the co-author of the book, Intention, Critical Creativity in the Classroom. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Dan. It's such an honor to have you.
Thanks, Jackie. It's an honor to be here. I am so excited for us to get started today. As Jackie was just saying a few moments ago, during today's webinar, we will review the importance of thematic units and create connections for learners between skill sets. We will demonstrate methods described in the CCIA manual, that's Critical Creativity and Action Manual, for creating thematic units of study. And then we'll review the Critical Creativity and Action webinar series and the frequently asked questions that we encountered during this 6-episode series. We should also point out that there are some icons you're going to see, and these icons help us visualize the ideas we're exploring. So when you see a brain icon, that indicates points in the webinar series when we will deliver new knowledge, definitions, or terms to you. And when you see the notepad icon, that indicates points in the series when we will provide examples of critical creativity and these skills in action. And finally, when we use the pencil icon, we're indicating points in the webinar series when participants will be practicing the skills we discussed by creating and making.
And also during our time together today, keep an eye out on the slides with the campfire icon. The campfire icon is a signal that we will be responding to questions together. Participate by commenting and contributing to others' comments as well. Campfires are used in cultures all over the world for people to share stories, information, insight, and ideas. People gather around campfires to ask questions, create solutions, and make plans, all while staying warm. So we will use the campfire icon as our signal today for responding to prompts.
So let's get back to our first campfire question, Jackie. What are some of your favorite themes to explore in literature, film, music, or art in your leisure time? And while folks are putting those responses in the chat, Jackie, what are some of your favorite themes to explore?
Well, I really enjoy stories about underdogs. Underdogs are people who succeed even though the odds are against them. I love the art that focuses on broad definitions of beauty and strength. And I really enjoy mystery series that take place in small towns because I love the idea of secrets in unexpected places. Now, what about you?
Well, I like a lot of those same ones. I really love stories and music that are about standing up for justice and goodness, especially in the face of overwhelming circumstances, which is a lot like what you were saying about the underdog theme just a few moments ago. I also really enjoy movies and series that focus on transformation, seeing the before and after and how that change comes about.
It's really interesting how easily one theme can connect to another. We just listed several themes that are about change and the unexpected.
Yes, exactly. And I actually hadn't thought about that till right now, that those themes that we discussed are all very interrelated. So I'm wondering what the audience is thinking, what some of the participants that we have today are saying about themes that they enjoy exploring.
Sure, yeah, we've got a lot coming in.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, the chat is quite busy today, and we've got people from all over the world too. I'm seeing people from, I think I saw someone from Saudi Arabia. We've got Honduras, Pakistan,
Excellent.
whole bunch of other countries too. So we've got a
That's
great
wonderful.
international audience with us today. So let's see, we're hearing about films and movies like social justice issues.
Social
And
justice. Yes, absolutely.
yeah, and let's see, love, growth, and power.
Oh, those are three really interesting themes. You could do an entire course, an entire English language course based just around, what was that? Love, power.
Love, growth, and power.
Oh, that would be an excellent. I'm thinking about all these great activities you could do in a seminar about those three very powerful ideas. All right, what are some of the others? I'm getting excited about that one.
Let's see. Someone wrote, I love films that explore the intricate dynamics of human relationships, examining the bonds of love, friendship, family, and community. Themes such as loyalty, betrayal, forgiveness, and the complexities of human interaction are often central to these narratives. They are my favorites. That's from Sema. Hope I'm saying that name right.
Wow. I love that there's so much. Now, for us, it's a little early here on the East Coast of the United States. It's not very early, but it's a little early. I'm so impressed that this thinking is happening in our chat. because this is really high order thinking.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed too. I told you, we've got a great audience
This is
today.
awesome.
Let's
I
see.
would expect our audience to be awesome because our audience is always awesome.
Yes. Let's see. We got some other good ones too. Empathy with culturally different people. I think we've
Oh, I
got
like
some things to say about that coming up.
we do. We have some empathy activities coming up here in a little bit.
Yep. And music seems to be a common theme. Several people have chimed in with music as a thematic unit. And then let's see, scientific articles and sports.
Oh, sports is an excellent opportunity.
Yeah, I like that.
I really like
And
the
then
idea of doing
other pretty
science with
broad
sports.
topics here. We've got conflict resolution, human nature and society, nature and environment, technology and its impact, social justice, and inequality. A
Those
lot of
are
stuff.
awesome. Oh, wow. That is fantastic. So hopefully, not hopefully, I know we're going to give you several activities and suggestions, strategies for how to integrate those themes into your English language teaching. And I think you're going to
Yeah.
find a lot of really exciting connections. And this is going to be a great webinar based just on those suggestions that our participants are putting out there already. So keep them coming.
No, keep them coming. Keep them coming. Yeah, we've got lots of people here. We've got people chiming in from more places all over the world. I saw Pakistan and Myanmar. Let's see, India. Yeah, we've got people from everywhere.
That's
All right. So before we begin, Dan, could you tell us what you mean by critical creativity? Let's do a little refresher since it's been a while.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that first.
Okay.
So critical creativity happens when we combine creative expression with critical thinking to develop deeper understanding and mastery of skills, concepts, and knowledge. When we think about teaching English language skills, critical creativity provides opportunities to grow reading, listening, and speaking skills through creative activities and assessments. These three examples all come from my own classroom and my learners. So we will build circuits to explain cultural values in the United States and around the world. We design games to demonstrate our English conversational skills, and we draw illustrations to practice our English vocabulary skills. Now, of course, there are many other forms of creative expression besides those you see on display here. We must be intentional and purposeful in how we use creativity to help learners develop their thinking skills, especially as they are developing their English language skills. So, with that in mind, another way to think about critical creativity is that critical creativity allows students to build authentic literacy skills while exercising their imaginations and creative spirits. And this illustration here might be one of the best examples I've ever had of a learner of getting into the spirit of critical creativity while also demonstrating deeper thinking. So in this image, what we have is a learner who designed, drew, and diagrammed an original creature that would thrive in our local climate. We were studying the importance of adaptability and biodiversity. So those were our themes. Our big theme was adaptability. And the learner included wings that change color to camouflage the creature and a tail that helps balance the creature no matter what the terrain is or the weather.
Wow, I really love this example. It's beautiful art and it shows so much knowledge and understanding of the subject at the same time. Well done. Now that we have a definition of critical creativity, let's review the importance of thematic units and how we can help learners make connections.
So thematic units are units of study designed to explore an abstract concept or human experience rather than a specific set of English language skills. So Jackie, what are some of the examples we could use to tell the difference between a traditional unit of study and a thematic unit of study?
Sure. Okay, so a common traditional language unit is greetings and farewells. This is usually the beginning of any beginning English textbook. And we learn the American English modes of beginning and ending a conversation or visit. Pretty much in any language, this is one of the first things that you learn. We learn how to say hello, goodbye, good morning, and so long, among other terms. A more thematic approach to the same language skills might be respect and kindness, with focus on what it means to be polite and considerate of others in American culture and how to express those feelings. This unit might include greetings and farewell language, as well as the language for making apologies and expressing concerns. The unit might also include stories and songs featuring acts of kindness while examining situations that lead to misunderstandings and hurt feelings.
Now, similarly, rather than a grammar unit on interrogative sentences, right, question sentences, we might design units about asking important questions. In both cases, learners develop their question asking skills, both in writing and in speaking. However, with the thematic approach, it allows us and our learners to consider what makes a question valuable and essential. So we can study what it means to ask a simple question in a conversation, and then also how to ask a philosophical or critical thinking question.
So we can even use thematic units to teach vocabulary. We often teach food vocabulary in our English language courses. What might happen if we were to teach units about growing empathy through eating? What if we studied food vocabulary while working to better understand different eating experiences and why those differences exist? We might look at why certain foods are popular in one culture or why some cultures eat on particular schedules that are different than ours.
See, in all of these great examples are reminders that themes are everywhere. Our whole world is connected by ideas and concepts. Right? So we use language to help us discover and grow those connections across different cultures. Thinking thematically as a concept is important to becoming more effective communicators.
Yeah, so thematic units connect language skills to purpose and create opportunities to apply those language skills to problem solving. So, for example, a unit on climate change might include learners researching, designing, and presenting inventions that could help reduce the effects of human-caused environmental change, right?
Absolutely. And thematic units also emphasize the importance of personal relevance of language skills and reveal the value of cultural knowledge to our learners. So a thematic unit on hopes and dreams might provide learners an opportunity to practice telling others about their ambitions for the future, and also to read about how different cultures perceive success and goals.
Right. So thematic units foster empathy between peers, and they build connections between the individual and shared experiences amongst a group. A thematic unit on coming of age might include learners interviewing peers around the globe through a virtual exchange to learn what it means to be a young adult in 2023. Dan, could you think of any other examples?
Oh, wow. Well, you know what? There are a lot. And we're going to look at even more right now. But you know what? This gets me thinking. You just asked a really important question, right? What are the examples of themes and thematic thinking? So just the act of asking essential questions and important questions promotes critical thinking, which could be a theme unto itself, right? It's a shared goal, finding these shared goals for all learners. And we hope that our learners were going to be able to make important, informed decisions and solve challenging problems thanks to their English language skills. That's one of the big reasons why we teach English language. We want people to be able to solve problems and make more informed decisions that are going to get them to their goals in life. So now we have some basic understandings of thematic units and some examples. So Jackie, perhaps now would be a really good time to consider the benefits and challenges of planning a thematic unit.
I agree, Dan. So here is campfire question number 2. What are some of the pros and cons of designing thematic instruction? We've listed a few pros and cons of thematic instruction on this slide. Now, Dan, let's talk about each one of these.
Oh, absolutely. So in these images here, we can see on the left, we see two really positive benefits, right? Well, a benefit is always positive. So that was a little redundant, but right, we get increased connections in a thematic instruction. And we see how different ideas work together, and we find ways to link the language that we're using and the ideas that we're exploring. And it also tends to lead to deeper engagement, because when you start doing that critical thinking, you start having to spend more time thinking about the why and the how of the language that you're using. And that tends to then connect to personal relevance and issues that are really important to the learners themselves. But there's also a negative side, right, Jackie?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we might also end up with less direct practice, and we might also find ourselves with much more challenging planning. So it really is a matter of finding a balance between the two. What are some of our participants saying, Jackie?
Well, let's look. It looks like they're still coming in. So we should think, let's see. I mean, I think that some of these, like the connections tend to lead to deeper engagement. And when we make these thematic connections, we tend to find more personal connections. So that's definitely a benefit, right?
Oh, it's an absolute benefit, because so many learners, at least in this is very true in the United States, and I think it may not be as true around the world in our English language programs, but a lot of learners will ask, well, why do I need to know this?
Mm-hmm.
Why does this matter? Right? And I think that can also happen in an English language program, where we're going through very traditional, let's learn these words and let's learn these words, and now we're going to learn these words. And if we can connect those through a theme, that helps our learners to better understand why they want to know those words and why they want to have those vocabulary skills really clearly in place, or conversational skills, because they may need to see a reason to be able to communicate really well through speaking and listening.
Right. So the more personalized the learning becomes, the more the engagement and the investment in the learning grows.
Absolutely.
All right, let's look at what people are saying now. Okay, now we've got them coming in. So Shireen, and I apologize if I have the names wrong. Pros, draws connections from the real world, gives students lots of research practice, makes for well-rounded students, and expands assessment options.
So two big points that came out of those were excellent. But the two big ones I heard were more assessment options, right? It gives you more opportunities. But two, what was the second? There was a second one. Shoot, I should have made a little note to myself.
Gives students lots of research practice.
Yes, research practice. So there's so much information in the world, and we're trying to help our learners to navigate all the world of English language information. Having a thematic unit provides that opportunity, because there could be so many answers. You could end up looking at so many different resources.
Right.
I love that.
Let's see. I'm going to keep going with the pros, and then we'll address some of the disadvantages. So another pro is like meaningful learning, enhancing creativity, and connecting to prior knowledge.
Love especially that connecting to prior knowledge. It helps us remember, oh, those skills and that vocabulary we learned a year ago or a few months ago, actually we still need it. Because in order to talk about this idea of change, or in order to talk about these ideas of social justice, we can't rely on just the current unit of vocabulary. We have to be able to draw on all of our skills to ask challenging questions or to explore big ideas.
Okay, now we're going to go into some of the the challenges. So one of the challenges
And I
can be
know there
that,
are some.
yeah. So Milish says one of the cons can be the application of analytical and imaginative thinking to go beyond rote memorization and reproduction of information.
Well, I think that's a question of whether or not it's a con. So
Mhm.
I think it's really important that our learners know facts, right? And they understand the difference between a fact and a truth, and understanding that truth is subjective and and can be interpreted, while facts are things as they are, right? So it's important for them to know facts and things that are undeniable and absolute. And it's important to balance that against their ability to be creative and imaginative, because we know that using creativity and imagination is what helps us to discover new solutions and to be innovative in their thinking. Because if we all thought the same, if we only just thought about facts all the time, we wouldn't find new solutions. We wouldn't find new ideas out there.
Right.
So I think there's definitely a place for knowing your vocabulary, knowing your grammar rules. This is not to say that we shouldn't learn those things.
Yep. I completely agree. And then we've got some other ones, some other concerns. So that I think we're going to address a little bit later in this
I imagine
webinar.
people will think about time and some of those
Yeah.
things, right? Yeah.
So there's
And
time, resources,
yep,
questions on assessment. How do you assess something? And how do you align it with curriculum requirements or standardization of, teaching for the test and whatnot?
answering, I know we're going to answer two of those questions right
Yeah.
towards the end of the webinar. So please stay tuned, because I know we're providing answers to at least two of those concerns, or I should say, we are addressing at least two of those concerns, if not more.
Yes. So I think that this is where the critical creativity and action cards can play an important role in addressing this. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact,
Yeah. So I was just about to say that we might have lost sight of how the critical creativity and action cards help us create thematic teaching and learning. So let's talk about that next.
that's a great idea. So let's start by looking at the cards themselves and review all the features on the critical creativity and action cards. So on each card, you're going to find a card number. There are 48, so it's easy to keep track of whether or not you have all of them. I have a hard time keeping track of my deck of cards. I sometimes misplace them and I have to find them again. Then you'll find the activity name. Then you'll find some discussion questions for after the activity. And then you'll also find point values that help you understand about how long it takes to complete an activity. So there are point values of 1, 2, and 3, and 1-point activities are very quick, and 3-point activities are more like an entire class period. Then you also have EL skills. We have icons for each of the English language skills. In this example, you're seeing the pencil for writing, you're seeing the headphones for listening, and you're seeing the microphone for speaking. Then you have an icon for the actual activity. This one's called song catching. And there are directions that in just a paragraph or two explain the basics of how to do this activity. You'll find more in-depth information on the critical creativity and action teacher's manual that Jackie developed for us. And you'll find that right on the website that we'll be linking throughout, and that we have linked at the end of our webinar here. And then finally, we have thinking and knowledge icons that let us know the dimensions of thinking that we'll be doing and the types of knowledge that we'll be engaging in during this activity. And we find that on each of the critical creativity cards.
Awesome. And in the critical creativity and action teacher's manual, there are explanations of each activity. There are also several suggestions for organizing thematic units and experiences using the different selections of cards. So the teacher's manual is really designed to work in tandem or together with the cards. So when you go to the website and you download the cards, you can print them off at your local printer or at home or at your school. And then you can also either print or save the teacher's manual, and you can use that to enhance your instruction using the cards.
Absolutely. And we have 3 new thematic units to share in this webinar. And the first is this one. It's called Sharing Our Personal Stories. So this one you won't find in the manual. So these are some exclusives just for our webinar to help you out, but you'll find many more there in the manual. So in this unit, Sharing Our Personal Stories, you'll be using cards 6, 13, 24, and 42. Now, those numbers may not mean a lot until you have the cards in front of you, and you can see them here on this slide. So it is the activity of Playlist to Life, the activity of Fragrant Flashback, the activity 3 of Me, and the activity 1 Word to Rule Them All. And what happens in this one, in each of these activities, in Playlist to Life, learners will develop a list of songs that they think represent the different stages of their life or represent an important moment in their life. And then they have to explain their choices for each one of those songs and the lyrics or music from that song that helps connect to their experience. Fragrant Flashback asks them to think about the scents and the smells of their experiences and to focus on that particular sensory engagement and sensory memory, and then share something share an event that happened in their life based on remembering the smell and using descriptive language to describe that smell. And 3 of Me are picking out 3 moments from your life that best capture who you are. You could do it through images or just thinking about 3 moments in your life that best represent you. And then finally, 1 word to rule them all. And that's where a learner would be thinking about their own experience in their life so far. And they would think, what is 1 word that would capture the whole idea of me and my experience, and how might I illustrate that 1 word using the word, but also through color and imagery? How would you capture that 1 word? So that's Sharing Our Personal Stories.
I really like this particular collection. I think that this really can enhance your reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills with your students. And this is a thematic unit that our students or our learners can work on individually or in groups or a combination of both. This is a really flexible way to approach sharing and storytelling. And storytelling is so essential for the buy-in of a language. So if you can communicate your story, your personal story, or your cultural story or your community story in the language that you're trying to do that in, you can really gain a lot of confidence learning a language.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Stories are
So,
one of the reasons we use the campfire icon, right? It's the idea of connecting around story. It's
yeah.
very human of all of us.
And you mentioned empathy earlier in this webinar, which is such an important critical thinking skill for our learners. Do you have an idea for a critical creativity unit that centers on empathy in particular? I think some of our people in the audience also asked this a little earlier.
They sure did, and I was excited to see that because
Yeah.
it feels so good when you make a plan and it's meeting the needs of some of the people in your webinar. That's just a very warm feeling to have. So cards 12, 35, 47, and 48 work great together as growing empathy. So song catching involves asking people to sing songs about a particular idea. So you would go around and ask somebody, hey, what is the song that you know about understanding someone else? What's a song that you know about compassion? What's a song you know about points of view? And ask them to sing a song that they think represents that. And then you write down the song that they wrote. You might, if you have the ability to record it, you might capture their recording. But the idea is to go around and use the power of music to find connections between people. Are You Listening is a directions based activity and involves listening carefully to a series of directions from a partner. In other words is an activity where you take a description and then you try to transform it and say that same description using a different set of words, a different set of language. So you think so, and it ties very much into the next activity where you think like, and you adopt different personas. You think about an idea or an issue from different points of view. So you might think like a race car driver. You might think like an astronaut. You might think like a person who lives in Antarctica, and you might think like a person who lives at the bottom of the ocean. So it challenges you to describe very common experiences from different points of view.
I really like this empathy collection. These activities help learners better connect with the people around them. And this makes language learning even more relevant and practical to our learners' lives. And this reminds me that many of our learners are looking to use their language skills to create economic opportunities for them, for their families. So how might we use the critical creativity and action cards to help with that goal?
We have a great idea for that. We could create a entrepreneurship unit, and that's what we have here, which is cards 9, 11, 33, and 45. So in one phrase campaign, you think of a particular topic or an object or an idea, and you come with one phrase that would get people excited about that idea. And then you create a little ad campaign based on that single phrase. You could also create one, if learners found that really abstract, you might create a one phrase campaign for your own, like who you are as a person. So if you were going to go to a job interview, what might be the one phrase that you want your employer to walk away with? And what could you create to help them think about that? Or a business associate, someone you wanted to partner with. Data Viz Tableau asks you take information, statistics, factual knowledge, and represent that in a compelling, creative way. Metaphorical fashion is all about designing clothes that represent ideas. So imagine, for example, based on the suggestions we had earlier, a metaphorical fashion about social justice, where the clothing represents the change that a group of people want to see in the world, right? And then finally, same ingredients, different dish is a really great activity for challenging innovative thinking. And you think about how, if you have the same materials, what are the different things you can make with them? So what are the different, if you have the same people in a room, what are the ways that you could organize them? Or if you have the same physical materials, if you have the same parts and pieces that you would use to build a house, what else might you build with those pieces? So the idea is same ingredients, all the same things, but combining them together to make something new, a different recipe. And together, all these kind of speak to the entrepreneurial spirit and the idea of being creative in order to build a business or build a brand that can lead to greater economic success. What do you think,
Awesome.
Jack?
I think that's awesome. And I think that we could easily tie this particular set of cards and this theme to some of our other resources on americanenglish.state.gov. We've got so many business English resources, and could combine them all. And you can also look in the teacher's manual for each one of these cards, because there are links to a lot of those resources. So you can even enhance your instruction further that way.
Absolutely.
But I think in the sake of time, I think it would be a great time for another campfire question. So,
Absolutely. We have so many participants. We want to hear from more of them.
Yes. So our next campfire question is, what are some possible themes that we would like to explore with our learners? And we have a few here on the slide that you can see. So we have freedom of speech, value of education, and taking care of our planet. Let's talk a little bit about those three things, and then please in the chat respond, and we'll get to your responses.
Oh, so I just think these are some of the core values that we try to work with here in the Office of English Language Programs, right, Jackie? These ideas kind of go through all of our resources and materials. This idea of being able to express yourself, right, and finding ways for learners to do that. I find that so important with my own learners, because even though that they have here in the United States, we have such a freedom to express ourselves, a lot of learners have to be reminded of that because they can start to take it for granted. And they forget that they have this opportunity to speak for themselves and to advocate for their needs. Right?
Absolutely. And I think that the more practice that we have in the target language, the better. I find that some of these kinds of concepts like freedom of speech or education or functional language to do a job, those things are the things that we need to gain more confidence with to really feel secure when we're speaking in a language that's not our first one.
Right. And I see those leading into this idea of taking care of our planet as well. Right. We have to build this confidence. I think one of the reasons why people are reluctant to try to solve challenging problems is because they don't feel confident that they're going to be taken seriously. That the world of communicating around these ideas requires you to speak with a certain with a certain amount of confidence and a certain level of skill, not just in your native tongue, but also in English. And I think there's a lot of reasons why, if we only learn language in the context of knowing the facts about the language, then we lose sight of how they can be put to use in meaningful ways.
Right. I agree. We've got some great responses coming through. So let's talk about those briefly. And then I think that there is an activity coming up that I'm going to challenge you to do, Mr. Dan.
Oh, there's going to be a challenge?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I will gladly accept any challenge.
Wait, let's go back. So let's talk about what our audience is saying. So we've got sustainability would fit our curriculum standards.
Yes.
And love and tolerance.
Oh, that's fantastic. I like that we do tolerance with that one, right?
Yeah, me too.
I love this idea of tolerance and how to have two different points of view and accept that both could be that they could coexist.
Right, which is kind of difficult in our day and age. So the more practice we have with that, the better. And let's see, we have valuing available natural resources.
Yes.
Let's see. And we've got disaster resiliency and human rights. I like both of those.
Oh, I like both of those. Disaster resiliency is, well, that goes along with the taking care of our planet. It's becoming more and more important. But it's not one that we think of right away. And I really like that because disaster could also be very, we could be thinking in terms of natural disaster, but we could also be thinking about personal disasters. What are challenging things that happen to the individual that might seem catastrophic for them? And how could we use thematic teaching to help all of our learners build that resiliency to when really terrible things might happen to them in their lives or in the lives of people around them? And we could tie into that empathy piece. Absolutely.
And we have some others that I think we can probably delve into during the chat a little bit later or after this webinar. So I really do want to get to our quick challenge, and I'm going to challenge you to do something sort of tricky, and you only have a couple minutes to do it. So what do you think? Do you think you're ready?
I think I'm ready. If I think I know what you're going to ask me to do, I'm going to turn off my camera here in just a second and then turn it back on. But let's see.
All right. So my challenge to you is that teachers are often asked to substitute for other classes or make meaningful experiences quickly. Teachers are probably the busiest people I know in my personal life and in my work life, are always on the go. So I'm going to ask Mr. Dan here to create a thematic unit based on a random selection of cards that I choose. Okay. Let's see how someone might be able to use the critical creativity action cards to quickly improvise a thematic unit. Are you ready, Dan?
I think I will be. All right. I'm going to adjust my camera here so people
Okay.
can see my hands and can see me working. I hope
Mhm.
everybody can still hear me because I'm just going to tip my camera down here for a moment. And then
Okay. I don't
I'm
think
going
we can see you just yet.
can't see me
So,
right this second. That's okay. I'm still talking, so you know I'm here. I'm going to turn off my background here. All right. And let me turn my camera back on. There we go. Can you all see? There you go. All right. I'm still here.
awesome. Okay. I can see it now.
All right. Here we have our deck of critical creativity cards. All right. And this challenge is you're going to give me a number of cards that I have to create a thematic unit around.
Yep.
Okay.
You ready?
I am
Okay.
ready.
All right. So, here's the numbers. 20,
20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Oh, thought I saw 20. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I'll find it. Okay, 20.
okay, and 27.
27. I just saw 27. 27 is right here. 27 is color palette. Okay, we've got color palette.
Okay,
I'm gonna put the icon side up so that people can see it. Okay.
and 16.
16. I've got 16 right here. So we've got Satan four ways and color palette. Okay. Oh, I just
And
found 20. That's tag
awesome.
wall.
Okay,
And did you have one more?
yep, 6.
6. Playlist of life. Oh, we talked about playlist of life earlier. Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. So here are these 4 cards, and I need to create a thematic unit based on color palette, playlist of life, tag wall, and say it in 4 ways, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I think I would do something around music. I think what I would do is a thematic unit on the power of music to create change. And what I think I would do is I would start with saying it in 4 ways. We would pick a word or a phrase that learners would choose a word or a phrase that they think would make change, and they have to say that word or phrase in 4 different emotions. And then they're going to write short lyrics for each of those ways that they're saying it. And those are going to become their playlists. Those are going to become their songs that are the playlist for this idea of using music to create change. Then they're going to create the art for a album cover of their songs. So they've got their 4 songs. They've got their names for them. They've got some lyrics for them. They're going to use color palette to create album covers. They're going to choose the colors that they would use for their album of this music that they've created that's all about making change happen. And then tag wall will be, as learners look and see what each other have developed, they're going to create hashtags that they think best capture the common themes and ideas across all of this music that people have made. And they're going to put those hashtags up on the wall to help connect the dots between all of these. So what I've kind of done is take each of these activities and use them as prompts and ideas to create even more activities. So I didn't do them exactly as described, but I put them to work to help me create an experience for my learners that I think is going to meet my thematic goals, as well as my language goals around emotion, understanding, listening, speaking, and finding connections between words. So Jackie, how do you think I did as I'm going to turn off my camera and come back up where I can see you all?
Oh, wow. I think you did an awesome job. I don't know if I could have done that. I'm very impressed. And I think that you did a great job of demonstrating how flexible and adaptable these cards are for the classroom. And I also think that, you know, this is the kind of activity that you could do in a teacher training setting as well, or like one of those teacher meetings that we all have right before or after a school year. This could be a nice warm up for a group of teachers to develop some ideas together. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I just like taking out the deck of cards now and again and just using them to fuel my brain. I might just take them out and play around with some ideas. If I feel like I'm in what we call a rut, right? If we feel like we're stuck and we've been doing the same thing over and over again. So Jackie, I think this was a great challenge because I really appreciate that challenge. It was not super easy and it allows me to flex my brain and I really like that. But I'm thinking we've got some questions that we want to make sure we answer for people as this is our last webinar in this series. What do you think?
Absolutely. So speaking of helping teachers, we've delivered this webinar series about critical creativity and action to teachers all over the world. And since this is the last episode, it seems like this would be a great time. So the first question that we found, so we went through all the previous webinars and we looked at the questions that kept popping up time and time again. And so these are some of the questions that we came up with. So when is the best time to use critical creativity activities?
So my response to that would be, it's always the best time to use critical creativity activities. And what I mean by that is, if we let ourselves think these are only for warm-ups, or these are only for end projects, or these are only for a particular moment in a lesson, then we might lose sight of how flexible and adaptable they are. So I think there's an opportunity to use critical creativity at the beginning to get learners excited about a unit of study. It might also be a great way to come up with an end project or an end assessment. That might be a good way to wrap up. If they're great for doing feedback and self-assessment. And they're excellent as group activities to challenge your learners to work together and collaborate in the middle of a week. So I think the best time to use them is really when it suits your purpose, and think about why you're using them and what you could use, like what you need for your learners in that moment.
That's great. I think that you could probably use these critical creativity activities like in lots of different ways, in different settings with different audiences. We really did try to create them to be as flexible as possible while also having a strong framework for learning and creativity.
Absolutely.
So how do we implement critical creativity and meet our curricular expectations at the same time?
This is a real challenge and it requires a balance. One of the things to think about is, here are our goals for what we need our learners to be able to do, what we need them to be able to demonstrate, and think about which methods we're currently using that aren't as successful with them, that maybe don't get the results that we're looking for. That's a great time to implement critical creativity and to balance out, here are the expectations. This is what I'm assessing. This is what I need to know they need to know how to do. I need to make sure I'm staying on pace there. But here's an opportunity where I could take a quick quiz or a test and swap it out and maybe do one of these activities instead of a drill and practice, or instead of perhaps a conversation technique or a dialogue study that hasn't been as effective as you'd like it to be. So it's a great time to swap something out for something that hasn't been working, but to balance them, remember, we're not assessing the creativity. We're assessing their knowledge. We're assessing their skills in the English language, which goes into question 3, which we get all the time. How do you grade critical creativity? And Jackie, we don't suggest that people grade the creativity side. We're saying assess their language skills. If they're not using the language correctly, it's still not meeting the target. It's still not successful. So that's what we're asking people to do.
Okay. And I think another question is like, what do we say to our school leaders or principals or any type of supervisor who are like reluctant to try new ideas, or if you have like no time or you're required to just teach to the test 100% of the time in your classroom?
So what I say to those folks is I say, I understand your concerns. Let me try one and come with, and can you be there and can you try one with me? Could you come experience this with my learners? It's a great opportunity to do one in a staff meeting or in a Zoom call where you might be connecting with your supervisor. Say, hey, let's try one of these quick activities. Try one of the very short ones. And one of the ones that you can see and you feel confident in just reading that activity. Because what I have found with school leaders is they're reluctant, not because they don't want to try new things, it's because they're fearful. They don't know what it's going to be like because they just don't know. So if we can let them have some experience using them as well, then they can start to see.
Awesome. Well, this webinar actually went a little past time, so we unfortunately aren't going to be able to answer our last campfire question, but I think we can do that in the chat afterwards. So Dan, you're going to be on Facebook for the next week or so to respond to any other questions. So how about this? How about if anyone in our audience has more questions, and I'm sure they do, don't be afraid to ask. It's always okay to ask questions. It's always okay to ask questions.
Yes,
so
please do. And I will be on the Facebook group, American English Educators Facebook group, answering questions. Please, please, please post them. Would love to help you out. And hopefully those questions we just answered started to solve some things for others too.
Yep.
So in this session, we did a lot of work in a short amount of time. We reviewed the importance of thematic units and created connections. We demonstrated methods described in the Critical Creativity in Action Manual for creating thematic units. And we reviewed the Critical Creativity in Action webinar series and all sorts of frequently asked questions. So I just want to say thank you all for letting me be a part of this. A big thank you to Chris, Kara, Brooke, Melissa, the whole team, Jackie especially for being my partner in this work, and to all the participants who have been a part of this webinar series. It has been absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to keep it going this week on the Facebook group.
Well, thank you, Dan. We always love having you here on American English for Educators. I always learn so much from you, and I've really enjoyed working on this project with you all along, from the inception of it all the way to seeing it being used in classrooms and in settings all over the world. It's really an exciting project. And so for our audience, please add your comments and questions, and we will be sure to respond. And remember to check back on this recording and keep asking your questions, and contribute to your colleagues' questions on the Facebook as well. We'd like to have a great dynamic conversation about these cards and how you can use them in the classroom. So as a reminder, this is the 6th and final episode in our webinar series here. And we'd like to add we'd love it if you added your comments to this, and look for the 5 other episodes on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. There will be a link here in the chat coming up. And be sure to visit americanenglish.state.gov and download the Critical Creativity in Action cards and manual. They're ready to be used in your classroom today. The link will be in the chat. Now, if you're coming to us from outside the United States today and you'd like a physical copy of the Critical Creativity in Action cards, don't be shy. Contact your regional English language officer nearest you to request a free copy for your classroom or school. You can visit the website linked in the chat to locate your RELO, your regional English language officer. And you can see on this map that RELOs are pretty much all over the world, and they oversee the countries surrounding them. So some relos are one country only, and other relos have access to multiple countries. So just go to the website and you'll find your country listed and which relo you need to contact. And many of the ideas found in Critical Creativity in Action are from Dan's book that he co-wrote with Amy Burville, which is called Intention, Critical Creativity in the Classroom. Amy was instrumental in leading the worldwide pilots and creating the preliminary design prototypes for critical creativity in action. And once again, we'd like to thank everyone in attendance here today and those of you viewing the recording after this is published. We've had a great time this year showing you the Critical Creativity in Action cards, and we hope that you'll be able to use them in your classroom settings for years to come. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime. We love our American English for Educators teachers. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Bye now.